Welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls Podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, theories, and more.
We're so excited to be joined by 2ToRamble to discuss what makes a book go viral these days. And because they are just such great examples, and yes, ones that Nicole and I are especially familiar with, we're going to focus on Fourth Wing and ACOTAR and how they came to be just as big as they are.
Welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls Podcast. It's great to have you here, Austin and Richard.
Hi, guys.
Go! Yeah! We are so intimidated because if you guys, you're all fans of Nicole and Lexi, they are so organized and put such a show on, and we're sitting. I have dragon wings on.
Like, look at his dragon wings right now.
We're a mess, and I just feel very uncomfortable with how unprepared we are. But hey, Rich. Hey, we're here. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Lexi.
Hello, guys. We're so happy to have you. Which, real quickly, note on the dragon wings. So we also just recorded a Fourth Wing review episode on 2ToRamble, and oh my gosh, Austin busted out the dragon wings, and it was such a surprise for us. And he'd been trying to hide them, when we were doing our intros before we hit record.
Perfect.
And it was absolutely priceless. I loved it so much.
I'm pretty sure those are now a part of your permanent outfit from here until the day you die. You have to have them on at all times. That's my headcanon, at least.
Oh, man.
Thank you for having us on. We're so excited.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Well, so we're going to go ahead and jump right on in. As usual, we do have our content warning. Today's spoiler warning does look a little bit different than usual. This conversation will not include major plot spoilers for Fourth Wing or ACOTAR, or let's just say other books. However, because we are talking about general themes, emotions, story structure, all of that jazz about these books, I'm sure there will be tiny little things here and there about Fourth Wing, ACOTAR, etc.
Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, sure.
Exactly. So if you're like, nope, I want to go into these books completely blind, then save this video for after you read. But otherwise, I promise we will be mindful of no specific spoilers. And then, of course, we at Fantasy Fangirls and here 2ToRamble, we are adults who say adult things about adult books. In other words, friends, this podcast is rated R.
We will be discussing the ingredients of a viral book. I will be bringing up romance, baby! So please be mindful of little listening ears. And now it is time to dive on in with 2ToRamble's Richard and Austin. All right, boys. Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Before we begin today's discussion, we want to have a rapid fire get to know you for our audience. All right, boys. Question number 1. Favorite fantasy book or series?
You first, Rich?
Favorite fantasy series? The Wheel of Time.
I'm shocked.
I know. If I had to pick just one singular book, I'm going to cheat and say Lord of the Rings. Because it comes in one big book.
Okay.
It's meant to be one book. If I had to pick one book, it'd be the Lord of the Rings series, Wheel of Time.
How many pages is the singular Lord of the Rings book? Do you know off the top of your head?
How many pages?
It's not too, but the trilogy in a whole is not too bad.
I was going to say, you're looking behind you. What? I need to see this. Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
It's majestic.
Vicky boy.
That is gorgeous.
I love how there's 2 lines of text on the sprayed edges. That's incredible.
So there's an index. Do you want to include the index?
Sure.
I think the appendices count.
I think with Lord of the Rings, yes.
1,138
That
right
is
now.
not as many as I thought it would be. Okay.
Yeah.
Not that bad.
It's really not bad. And my favorite book might be longer than that
All
one.
right.
And this is, of course, Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. It's book 3 in one of my favorite series, the Stormlight Archive. But if you put a gun to my head, I might change that on another day and say Discworld by Terry Pratchett or the singular book Sword of Kaigan by Emma Wang. She's right now just one of my favorite authors, and Brandon Sanderson. So those two combined, I'm cheating and saying both of them.
So quick
it's okay,
shout
we
out
cheat
to
all the time too.
Absolutely.
Now that's the book that Hayden has been obsessing over, and we just included in our newsletter, Nicole.
So our sanity manager / our executive producer Hayden is obsessed with Sword of Kaigan. It's one of his favorite books that he's read at the given moment. So you are in very good company there as well.
If I can leave any of your audience with anything, read that book. Nicole and Lexi, please read that book. It meshes. No spoilers, nothing, blind, read it. It's
okay.
Incredible.
The things that I could say that would convince you to read it, I feel are too spoilery. Part of the fun of the book is you go in thinking it's one genre and it's one idea, and you think you know the whole plot, you think you know it.
Awesome.
Is that like
I
an
love
ACOTAR
that.
kind of thing? So that's going to be one of the amazing things that we are talking about with what makes a book viral too. So moving back to rapid fire here, what is your favorite TV series or movie?
Oh,
We can say it together.
we can say it together.
Movie.
First off, I love how it's rapid fire. We went like 10 minutes. We gotta go quick. Okay. Rapid fire. Movie. 3, 2, 1.
The Lord of the Rings. Extended
love it.
edition.
Love it, love it.
specifically.
Which? Oh, the first one, Lord of the Rings. I'm assuming Lord of the Rings.
Well,
number one.
Fellowship. So
Yeah.
we consider them as one, but we'll say if you had to pick,
I would say Fellowship.
Fellowship,
Fellowship's
Return of the
so
King, then
good.
2 Towers, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the correct reading order is extended edition of Fellowship, the standard edition of 2 Towers, and then the extended edition of Return of the King.
What do
Extended
you
edition.
have against the extended edition of 2 Towers?
Perfect movies, it is less than perfect.
Oh,
Of the
wow,
perfect, it's
that's-
slightly less. It bugged me.
Disagree.
I'm so curious as to why, but this is rapid fire, and I'm trying to
He's
hold my
wrong.
question.
He's wrong. Just go by. It's rapid fire. Ignore him.
Okay, favorite way to read? Is it physical book, ebook, audiobook?
Is yours audiobook?
It is the way I mostly read. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm going by quantity, it's audiobook, but I enjoy reading on ebook probably the most. And then I love having a library.
Is
I
this your
love the
library
aesthetics.
behind you?
This is my library.
It's
I'm the exact same way. I mostly listen to audiobooks, but I prefer ebooks, but I also love a good physical book, but I haven't really been reading those lately, but I need to have my trophy books.
Yes,
you
the
know?
trophies. It's the trophies, yes.
I have a setup for my bed of where I have my ebook on an arm that I can put right above my head with a little clicker that
Yes.
allows, so I don't have to like move. It just is there.
Yeah,
It's
I love it.
I need to get me one of
I
those.
listen to audiobooks because I've given into technology, but I will always vouch for physical books being the superior form of reading, because if I can't see how many pages I am through and I can't touch it, it's not real. It's in the ether. It's fake. It's like money. It's just credit card. You swipe it. That's
Yep.
not real. Dollars are, credit cards are not. That's just my thought process.
Pretty valid.
Physical books all the way.
Okay.
All right.
I love it.
What is your Hogwarts house?
I would want to be Gryffindor. I'm probably Hufflepuff.
I think I'd agree. I guess Hufflepuff. I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I am too. Yeah.
Which Besgaiath quadrant would you be in?
Likelihood, infantry.
I was going to say the same thing.
Frontline infantry is the correct answer.
I think that's the first time anyone has actually said infantry.
agree. Yes.
But I think I can handle blood and gross body parts are fine with me, so I could probably do healer.
Okay.
I'm not smart enough to be the scribe. I think I could maybe set a bone or two.
I think I would be an infantry because generally cannon fodder, but I would want to be a scribe. That's what I would aspire to be because I love writing. I love stories. Scribes at least get the closest you can to stories. I wouldn't want to go fight. I got dragon wings on. I don't want to fight. I'm not a fighter.
All right. Last question here for you. Which Prithian court would you want to live in?
Now, granted, we've only read the first book, so
That is true.
That
That
is
is
true.
true.
going completely on season, and I understand that the leadership of this court is, shall we say, a little vindictive and evil. I'd still pick the Autumn Court.
Yes. You are not
'Cause I love
alone
autumn.
in that choice. Many people,
Yeah.
despite Baron being just an asswipe, they're like, I love a pumpkin spice latte, you know?
Fall is
That's
the
a
best
good
season.
point.
It
I
really
want
is the best
eternal
season.
fall.
And I just am such a seasons girl. So it really depends on what day you ask me, and I will have a different answer.
That's
Because
true.
sometimes mine is autumn too. Yes.
I need to live in a place that has 4 seasons. I want to see all 4 seasons. I don't like when locations skip seasons. And I would say autumn's my favorite season. But I guess from the book 1, isn't it Spring Court that we're in for the majority of the time?
Spring Court is where
Is that
we're in,
correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a rule I really only know about, and I'm scared of confrontation and going outside my bubble, so I'll say spring until I find
You
out more
fit
about the
right
other
in
courts.
with that High Lord of theirs. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm a summer court
Oh, I
girly.
can't wait
need
till
my
you read the
beach
rest of the
vibe.
series. Anyway, we're not talking spoilers here. All right, let's
Okay.
talk about today's topic, which is the ingredients of a viral book. Nicole and I, of course, do our deep dives. We have particularly talked about popular series like ACOTAR, the Empyrean series. You both cover a lot of other fantastic fantasy books as well.
I'd love for you guys to take the mic real quick. Will you tell us a little bit about 2ToRamble and what you guys do on your
Yes.
channel?
Sure, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, absolutely. On 2ToRamble, we are fantasy sci-fi book nerds. We have a podcast where we have 2 videos a week. where we either review a book, we go on a topic that nobody wants to listen to, but like objectivity, subjectivity in art, about copyright laws, and everything to do with stories, because you should see our how we review books. We just get very granular and like to get super specific about why we think our thoughts about books, but we also have guests try to keep it fun. And our job, I guess, as book reviewers or just having a podcast is just to show you, hey, this is what we like, not what everybody should like, and we just freebird it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Basically, we review books and talk about storytelling.
I love it.
I'm making a plug for you all to go and watch the ACOTAR review. It is one of my favorite favorite videos on the internet ever. It's so funny.
So funny.
It's incredible. Just we'll put it in the show notes because it's absolutely amazing.
And while we're at it, we also just did a Fourth Wing review with you as well. And don't worry, friends, we went to bat for Fourth Wing.
They did a fantastic job.
They did a great job on it.
All right. Well, you two are absolutely perfect to have as guests as we discuss, the ingredients of a viral book. So let's ask just a few questions just for all of us here as a group. First and foremost, how are we all defining a viral book nowadays?
Austin, why don't you kick it off?
So I think if we're talking what makes it viral, it's kind of like when you would say, what is a blockbuster movie? In a way, a blockbuster used to be defined as there's literally a line around the block. You could see the people go around the block into the movie. We don't really see that nowadays a lot unless it's a massive, massive film. You could see people literally waiting outside to get into one. So I guess with a viral book, you could say it's maybe even hard to purchase, like they're running out of copies of viral book. That could be one measure.
I'll add to that too. Midnight releases. Midnight
that's
releases
exactly what I was
used to be
thinking.
huge with Harry Potter. We loved going to the midnight releases, and now for a lot of the viral books, now they are having midnight release parties where people come in from all over and they are there to celebrate this book together. So I see that as a very similar to that blockbuster movie sort of thing.
Totally.
Absolutely. Harry Potter, those were blockbusters. Those were viral books. They took the world by storm. Fourth Wing. Here's another thing that could explain a viral book is when a book goes outside its genre, or we don't read romantasy, and we're epic fantasy. When a book breaches its genre to where people who don't typically read that thing is so popular and so viral that we're forced to read it to be up to date in pop culture, that's a viral book.
That's a good description.
I love that. I'll add to that when a book gets to non-readers. So for instance, ACOTAR or Fourth Wing, or I'll say Harry Potter when we were kids, it introduces you to reading, or maybe it reintroduces you to reading. And you hadn't been a reader before, and then you keep hearing about this book, or somebody convinces you to read it, and then you do. And then next thing you know, we all have, YouTube channels and podcasts, and here we are.
Rich, what about you?
I think those are all great, but I think there is an important rule to add into all of this. Ooh. It's the airport rule. There are many popular books out there, but I think for it to qualify as a viral book, it has to be available in an airport bookstore.
In addition to I'm going to build off of this, Rich, is if the author is traveling, they can go to an airport bookstore, sign their copies, make an Instagram post about it, and those books are gone within an hour.
Yep. My husband was literally at the airport, and Rebecca Yaros had books at the Denver airport signed, and it was literally like he missed it by an hour. Like his flight had just taken off, and I'm like, no! Because Nicole went and got her book signed, and she didn't get me one signed by her.
There is more to that story, and
I know there is. There really is.
But all right, I think there's a huge part of viral books that we have yet to discuss, and that is viral social media. How do you think social media has played into the virality of books, specifically, I'll say fantasy books?
I think it's social media will follow a viral book. I don't think it makes the viral book.
Ooh, can you talk that out a little more?
Well, I give a good example of Harry Potter. Harry Potter, yes, there were viral memes. The internet does follow it, but it's not the same. Harry Potter was a cultural viral book authentically before the internet really memed it, before we see all the different TikToks or the joke videos, like any of that. Similar thing with Lord of the Rings would be considered, at one point it went viral, where across the pond, colleges were going out, bands, the Beatles tried to make a Lord of the Rings.
There was graffiti of Gandalf for president back in the 60s. It was a big pop culture thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Where that is before I think the internet just more amplifies or follows the idea of a viral book.
So I love these, I'll call them classic examples. And thinking about a viral book nowadays, like for instance, Fourth Wing or ACOTAR, I'm going to say that the internet and specifically social media really, I don't know if it even amplifies it, but it's like the circle of life. Because when what makes a viral book, that I know we'll get to this in a moment, but when you're not done with the book after you finish reading it and you just want to keep consuming it, and that's where social media comes in, where then you can go to the memes, you can talk about theories, you can see the fan art, you can see all of the different things that keep you in this world and keep you talking about this book that you're not ready to let go of. And the more people who are having that conversation about these really good books, the larger and larger, and all of a sudden you see it all over the place, and then that's what really creates that snowball effect these days.
Well, and I wonder what, like, for instance, Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings would have been like if there was a TikTok when those were in their height of release, I'll call it. Like, for instance, I'll throw in Harry Potter because there was like MuggleNet and there was
Our friends at MuggleCast.
Well, the MuggleCast, like other podcasts, like just like started like way before podcasting was even a thing. And I wonder what would have been with Harry Potter, with Lord of the Rings. Like that's what, like when I finished ACOTAR, that was the first place I went. I was like, I need a really good meme that is so out of context, but that only I will understand now because I have finished these books to satiate my need right now. That's what I needed.
Well, and the books have to be popular in order to get those views and the engagement, and it creates like this circle of life sort of thing where it just feeds into it, and then again, like I said, it makes that snowball effect nowadays.
I can agree with that.
All of these examples we're talking about, I think, have one specific thing in common, and this is it's not universal, but it is pretty broad umbrella, but I think it's almost essential, is all of a viral book needs to be something that people want to be in.
Yes.
To some degree. I think all of them, the reason why was Harry Potter so popular? Why did it go viral? Why did people want to talk about it? And they want to consume more things that aren't just the book. They want to consume blogs, the memes. It's because they want to be in the house. They want to be part of Gryffindor. They're wondering, what house would I be in? When you're reading ACOTAR, you're going, oh, what court would I be? How would I fit into this world? I think that's the same thing with Fourth Wing, is how would I fit in? When you ask this question of what quadrant would you be in, it's always about putting yourself into the book. I think that's an essential element of a viral book.
That is
exactly
so good.
So question for you both. Do you think that being in the top charts is a big contributor to being viral, or do you think it's almost like a consequence of being viral?
Like being on like the New York Times bestseller list or something?
Yeah, I'll say, is being in the top charts enough these days to be considered viral?
We actually had an episode where we were talking about the New York Times bestseller and how much it matters. And it seemed from what we found out there that earlier in the 2000s that it mattered a little bit more to be on a bestseller list. And as time goes on, there's more kind of word of mouth, more untraditional ways. Like untraditionally published indie authors are now able to get more of a scene now than ever before. Obviously, it's good to have a stamp with New York Times bestseller or whatever list, USA bestseller.
Won the Hugo Award or
all that,
whatever award.
Yeah, all that's really good. As far as being on the list, then getting popular, I think that it just has to be a good enough book that hits enough for the viewers to, or for the readers to actually get there in the first place, where Ken Liu, who wrote The Grace of Kings, very much not a viral book. It is a very niched down book that is for particular readers. He had a very great point on another booktuber, Bookborn, who's fantastic. If you guys know Bookborn or anybody watching knows Bookborn, she had an interview with him where Ken Liu was saying one of the ingredients to a viral book, or just to a book that gets a lot of people to like it, is an author can, and I'm kind of butchering, he can speak for himself, but I'm giving the general point where he said you can write 100% of what this book is for. It has 100% of the things this person would want. It has 100% of what this reader would want. You can really niche down because, hey, if it's very particular, it has a very niche market and it's for this person here, and it's not going to be super viral, but it's perfect for that person, versus more viral books have 80% of what millions of people want. So it can never hit the 100% mark for Rich, for me, for you.
Yeah.
It can never hit for everybody. Like, I'm sure for Fourth Wing, ACOTAR, these things, even the fandom has some complaints like, I wish this was different. Like, this, I love, like, I think 80% of the book is a 10 out of 10, but man, this just isn't for me. Books like that where if you hit the 80% mark of, generally speaking, 80% of people are going to go, 80% of people can go, I like dragons and I like romance, and but I might not be the biggest fan of, I won't spoil a thing that happens in the book, but something like that. So that kind of factor, I think, matters more than just, hey, you're on a list and now you become viral. But would you guys agree with that?
I'll say for me, when it comes to New York Times, if I see, like, if I'm looking in a bookstore, if I'm browsing, the candy aisle, I'm looking for a book that I recognize. Like, for instance, I either have heard of it from a friend or I saw it on Instagram numerous times or something like that. Far more, that like weighs way more in my mental decision making versus, New York Times bestseller. Because for me, it just feels like either everything's a New York Times bestseller or it just blends into the background. And it doesn't really feel like it weighs that much with me. I don't know. What about you guys?
Right. When's the last time someone said, hey, read this book, it's a New York Times bestseller? Or when have they said, hey, read this book, it has this and this
exactly.
meets this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I feel the exact same way.
Yeah. I feel like a viral book, it's devoured, it's embraced, it's celebrated by not just the book community, thinking like booktubers, book talk, all of us here, but like casual readers and new readers, like I was saying earlier, where, oh my gosh, I'm just seeing it everywhere. It's all over social media. You're reading articles about it. You're hearing podcast episodes about it. You're able to talk about it in conversations outside of just, your book club.
Yeah.
Like I say that, although I realize in our, when we explain our jobs to people these days, I always am so surprised by how few people are like familiar with ACOTAR or Fourth Wing. And to me, it's like, have you been living under a rock? And it's like, okay, they don't live in my world.
That's
like
true.
it can be a viral book and not everybody in the world has heard of it, like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or something along those lines.
Definitely.
Yeah.
ACOTAR is viral especially in the book community. Like, it is broken. Anyone who reads books at all knows ACOTAR. It maybe hasn't breached that Harry Potter level, where there's
you get a theme park, you get movies.
Well,
I
I don't think we're gonna get an ACOTAR Disney.
One
ride.
can only hope.
Nope,
no spoilers, ma'am.
All right, anyway. Oh man, I had such a good thing to say. Oh well. No, I agree. And it's kind of like there's the books in these worlds that I'll say define a generation, and then there are viral books that are more, I'll say, like the everyday kind of viralness there too.
And I'll throw out even kind of going off of New York Times bestseller reviews, and not necessarily like, I don't read reviews because I don't like spoilers, so I don't want to look at those. And also, I know that if I have a negative experience, I'm like 10 times more likely to remember it than if I have a good experience with something. And I feel like reviewers take that to a whole new level sometimes. So for me, sometimes I'll look at like the number of reviews it has, and maybe that's it. And I'm like, oh, this book's much more popular than I thought it was. Or, oh, this book only has 3 reviews. Great. It's like, but if something only has 3 reviews, it doesn't turn me off to it, if that makes sense.
So let's now talk more of the what actually makes a book viral. Like, let's talk about the ingredients, because I'll say this, there are so many articles and guides about how to make your book go viral. I was preparing for this episode here, and it was like, wow, this is all like how to make your book go viral from a marketing standpoint. And yes, absolutely, there is always going to be a marketing aspect to make the odds more in your favor of getting your book to go viral. But it always starts with the story itself. So as we're talking about the ingredients of a viral book, what in the story makes it capable of going viral?
I think this is an essential element to it. It doesn't make it, but I think it's necessary, is you have to have a rootable main character. I think you have to be able to root for someone. That emotion specifically is essential to a viral, because it's I think one of the easiest emotions people can cling to. Harry Potter, of like, he's such in a poor situation, like you rooting for him to rise up above the rest of his peers, and terrible in-law, uncles, whatever have you. Same thing with Violet in Fourth Wing, is met with all these challenges and you're rooting for her.
Yep.
I fail to think of a viral book where there's not a rootable character.
I'd say viral in a positive way. Yes, I agree. Like, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
But like, so yes, is there a book? Now I'm so curious. Is there a book that you can think of off the top of your head that you do not root for the main character?
There's one that maybe root for is the wrong word. It's just like I'm more apathetic toward is from Dune. With Paul Atreides.
Interesting. Good one. Yes.
Yeah. I would say I'm not like, go Paul, like bad things happen to Paul, of course. However, it's not, he doesn't have your typical hero's journey.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say the
Here's the
least, so.
thing, though. A lot of people rooted for Paul. Because so much so that a lot of people did get the point that you're not completely supposed to be rooting for Paul. It's one of those weird books.
But it's one of those books where I don't think you read Dune for going, oh, Paul's character arc is going to be incredible. It has a little different twinge to it. But I think generally speaking, you got a good framework where,
I'm
hey,
even
can you
thinking
get
about a flash in the pan type of viral book was The Martian.
Oh, yeah.
Martian was quick. Like it went from viral book to great movie. People talked about it. It was, I love the book and I really like the movie. Different there. But
yeah.
But Mark Watney is such a rootable character. You're really rooting for him. You're going, oh, it's so heartwarming. I want him to succeed.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about Game of Thrones, there's plenty of characters in there that you're not rooting for, but there's enough that you are.
I also think, like you were saying there, Richard, where it starts with a story that ignites passion in the fandom, where you want to root for the main characters. Like you feel emotionally invested in their hero's journey, and really that creates this passion for the story, for the characters, and what they go through. And of course, another ingredient too is just like makes you want to shout from the mountains just how amazing this book is. Where when you recommend it to people, you don't have to preface it like you aren't, I don't want to say like embarrassed to recommend it, because you're just so excited to bring them into this world with you.
It's like I want to get a megaphone and like get this close to their face and be like, "Have you read this book yet?" That's what I want to do.
Yes, exactly. Knowing that it would be a book that they would like we were saying earlier about, with like describing what it's about and whether that matches for people.
For sure.
And like
Can
I was saying,
throw in a
go for it. Yeah.
ingredient
yes, absolutely,
that I think
please.
is I think one of my favorite authors ever, Sanderson, he has this lesson he teaches that ideas are cheap, where the idea itself, the idea doesn't matter so much as executing even a poor idea. A fantastic author, fantastic writer can make a rather silly idea turn into something amazing, where all the books we think about where it's like, it's not like the idea's revolutionary. It just does what it does so well or fits the line. A great example would be Hunger Games, where Hunger Games being such a viral book and just hits the world by storm. A book like that just I think it's 27 chapters on the dot, I think. But what it basically puts perfect storytelling in the way that humans throughout time, even before the written word was here, of how we interact with 3-act plot structure of, we want conflict at the beginning, some inciting incident, go into a new world. Our hero has their flaws and then confronts a big all is lost moment, but it's so satisfying because they were struggling. They finally realized what they needed, and everything that we know about stories where all the authors are doing in all these different variations is putting the formula perfectly. I think in some way viral books have to be somewhat formulaic. There's your exceptions, because I want to talk about movies just for a brief second, because it's a better example, where your Oscar films, which I'm a nerd, I'm a cinephile, I will watch Oscar films, be like, oh my God, it's literally beautiful, it's genius, and like 20 people saw it.
Yeah.
Because it's just not a viral movie. Whereas your Top Gun Maverick that comes out, your Avatar Blue People, which I still don't understand why people love that damn movie, but those things which are more just can be viral, can just hit the world by storm. Titanic. We can go with the $1 billion movies. My point being that...
So you have an issue with James Cameron, it sounds like.
Huge issue. I actually kind of like Titanic. I was just saying...
Titanic's a horror story. All right?
It really is. Well,
it's a horror story.
That's a great point about having that structure, and I think you even said the sense of familiarity there. So thinking about the stories here, there is like a balance of originality and familiarity. Familiar where taking it away from the structure, because I absolutely agree with you there, where it's kind of like you go through a flow. You don't even realize you're going through the flow.
That's it right there. I feel like you don't want to. It's like movie soundtracks. You do not want to realize you are listening to a movie soundtrack when you are watching a movie. If you recognize like, there's music right now. I feel like the composer did not do the job right because you're not supposed to realize it. It's just supposed to be background support. Continue, Lexi. I'm sorry.
But no, well, not necessarily even background support, but it is so wrapped up in the experience of what you're going through that it is simply you're already immersed in it where you don't even recognize that it's there. So then when we look at the familiarity, where we recognize a little bit of the story there, or it even has maybe a hint of nostalgia, because so many of us did love reading as a kid. I think why so many of us do love Fourth Wing is because we do recognize like a tiny bit of Harry Potter with like the school aspect right there too, and like the 4 quadrants, the 4 houses. Again, there's not a whole lot more than that, but then, or even like ACOTAR is another great example about Beauty and the Beast. And then when you get to the originality part of it, without spoilers, ACOTAR is turned on its head in a completely new and fun way that surprises you and makes you lean in even more too. So it really is like this great balance of something that is both familiar and you recognize and it's nostalgic, and something completely new and exciting that you just can't get enough of and you can't stop turning the pages. Yeah.
And to Rich's point here, where you were saying how this character to root for, I mean, in those examples you used, Harry Potter, ACOTAR, all these things that are super viral, Katniss Everdeen, they all go on this journey because usually there's some parental issue where either adopted, bad parents, parents dead, something to where you're younger, YA, or even you're adult. Even Dune, it happens. All these stories, you have to go outside and go on this formulaic journey because you have to have something that pushes your character out to write the story in the first place.
Exactly.
So even though there's not a ton of similarities with ACOTAR and Harry Potter, sure, you have the different houses. Ooh, what would I fit in Harry Potter? What would I fit in ACOTAR's world? But where even that is, you have the protagonist with a serious problem that they need to overcome, and then you're just genuinely rooting for them. So back to your point, but do you both have a theory? Because we tossed out just 1 or 2 of our what we think could be an ingredient for a viral book. What ingredients do you both think they need to have?
You already said it, but the way to relate and connect yourself and categorize yourself, maybe even that. We love to put ourselves into these stories beyond just being able to relate to the character. I think that is a fundamental necessity for a story. But what can really make it go viral is when it has more ways for us to be immersed in the world itself, and not just like reading about it and being excited about it, but how we would personally fit into it. Like, again, when we were doing our rapid fire, those like the which court would you fit in, which quadrant would you be in, which house would you be in, that automatically gives us a sense of how you identify. Obviously it's very surface level, but it's really fun in that way.
For me,
it also provides community.
Exactly where I was going with this. Like, for me, a viral book, there's a community behind it, and there's the community saying, if I was out in the wild and I wore this t-shirt that I'm wearing right now, which is Bisgaiath, I would immediately have a new best friend in the entire world because someone would come up to me saying, oh my God, you've read Fourth Wing, let's talk about it. So there's this element of camaraderie. And I feel like one of the things that I do think, for example, I think Harry Potter did when it was so in its prime is it made reading cool again. I wasn't really like super in that world, but it definitely had this element where it made being a nerd really cool. And I say that with a very endearing term. I feel like A Court of Thorns and Roses, at least in the reading community, it is bringing a lot of people who were not readers. They're now like, you know what, maybe I should try this fairy smut and see how that goes for me. There's a great trending sound that's like, you know what, my life very much improved when I stopped reading self-help and I started reading smut. I would change a few words in there. For instance, smut, I changed to fantasy or something like that. But I do agree.
Our algorithms are the same. I see that.
And personally, I do agree. I think that there's this element of, I want to go into these books and I want to be a part of it. And then there's the community that says, hey, me too. I want to do that too. That's what I think every single viral book, TV show has in it.
So I'm going to add one more thing, and it's a little bit more unique. So I won't say that it's absolutely necessary, but it is something that I have really noticed with viral books nowadays, and it ties right back into social media, is possibility of theories. I think that the reason why Fourth Wing became as big as it is because, yes, it was a great story. Yes, it had all those ingredients, but most of all, it had so many Easter eggs and so many loose ends where everybody just jumped on the theories. That is literally how Nicole and I started our podcast. Is, of course, there was the deep dive with the characters and foreshadowing and all of that, but there was also so much talk about theories, and it's how we built our podcast, because so many people are so excited to, I'll say, creatively think, and it's not having to adult, and it's not having to talk to use your brain for work, but it is being able to creatively problem solve and have really a lot of fun with these theories and predictions and things like that. And so the book has to have that capability, not just of having like some loose ends, but really strategically putting in those Easter eggs that make people so excited to read the sequel, to see what comes next, and to theorize, all again going back to that sense of community too, where it's just like everybody in it together kind of thing. And I think that is really a very important element, especially with social media now too, that's necessary for a viral book.
I do want to throw a wrinkle in the idea of community.
Wrinkle it up.
I think there's on one level, there is the sense of community that a book brings. Like, oh, you're a Harry Potter fan. Let's use that one. But what's fun with that community is there's an artificial division, and that division provides conflict. How much do people argue of like the fake fighting really between between your Gryffindors and your Slytherins, and both camps have their fans. And the same thing of Fourth Wing, of which quadrant you would be and the powers,
or
and how you would
Twilight
segment.
with Team Jacob versus Team
Jacob.
Edward.
So you are a part of community. It's all coming together, but there's also the artificial division and conflict, and that provides great discussion. That's almost more fun than just if a book's just great and you're talking with somebody about it. You're like, yeah, we both like the same thing. It's awesome. Okay, that's where the discussion kind of ends sometimes. But if your friend goes, oh, but I'm on Team X. Oh, well, I'm on Team Y. What? And that provides just more conversation. It's just as more interesting, and why people would talk about it.
Yes,
Yes.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Well, and
absolutely.
I'm going to throw out one more, and I don't think that this is a necessity, because I think there are several examples that do have a lack of this and still do extremely well. But I think that what we're seeing, especially coming up, and I'm leaning more into the romantasy side of fantasy right now, is I do think a lot of romance is selling right now. And I'm not just getting on my hype train because I love my romance, but I do think, the Rise of Bridgerton is a great example here. I know that's not exactly like the same realm that we're talking about, but there's a lot of, if we talk about love triangles, if we talk about enemies to lovers, talk about a trope.
I was just going to say about
crazy.
Certain tropes. I'll even call them trending tropes too, with enemies to lovers and things along those lines.
I would say that in the formula, having that element of romance, I think, is definitely drawing a lot of people to these two books right now specifically.
Kind of shifting it a little bit here, let's talk about, being in the fantasy realms. Do you think that world building plays a key role, or how certain elements of the world building and lore? What do you think about those playing a factor into viral books?
It's a double-edged sword. I've read books where the world building will get in the way of a lot of people enjoying things. Malazan, for a key example, it's world building heavy, and it makes it not a very viral book. It's not gonna hit. It's not gonna please everyone. If there's too much, I think it can definitely be too burdensome for a viral type book. I think a viral book to some degree can't be so complicated and confusing to the point where you have to read essays to really understand it. Though that can really fit a niche and it can be really enjoyable. But I don't think it's the difference between the Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion. I love the Silmarillion. That's never going to be viral, where Lord of the Rings definitely can. And they both have that lore, but it's different levels of world building.
So one thing that I really love, and I've noticed is very popular with viral books, or I'm going to say viral series, is it starts out bite size. And so I think Throne of Glass is a great example here. I'll even say ACOTAR. I'll even say Fourth Wing. And again, we're using these very specific examples just because we are very much in these worlds right now. But where the first book starts out, it's kind of like, okay, like here's like this little bit of the world, and then you read book 2 and it's like, okay, and then it starts expanding, and then by book 3 and 4 and whatnot, it's not even recognizable from book 1, and it doesn't feel overwhelming because you've been on this full journey and you've been able to be on that journey. And I do think, and kind of even the length of the first book, in order for people to not feel intimidated and to really be able to tell all of their friends about it and to keep rereading it and to talk about it and all of that, I do think that at least the first book has to be a short enough length, like not a super short book, but it can't be like one of these thick boys, like, you know,
When the Moon Hatched, like 700 pages.
Exactly, like this is book 7 here. And
the author has to earn
you have to earn your 900.
Maybe even
Exactly.
previous series though, because like Sanderson, who wrote Stormlight, I mean, his first book's 420,000 words long of Stormlight, but he wrote other series to build up for us to trust him to write a book like that.
Exactly. And so I think that there is that element of like a viral series with starting out and earning that trust and really getting immersed in the world, and then continuing to build and build and build. And then I do think that can almost be what makes it a timeless series as well, is once it's completed, it is just so like every single book has been its own viral sensation, or to the point where it has bled into culture, you know, and it's been with you for years and years and years, and it has started to define a generation in that sense.
Here's one thing I'll build off of that is I love it. And this is not necessarily what I think needs to be a part of a viral book, but it's a big personal must in order for me to get my megaphone out, you know? That is, I need to know that the author knows where this book is going. One of the reasons I feel very, very confident in, I think of like Rebecca Yarros, I think of Penn Cole, who wrote the Kindred's Curse series. Like, they know where they're going. They know the ending goal that they're trying to hit so perfectly, where I'm just like, take me on a journey, Rebecca Yarros. Because then I know at least, I might be disappointed, but at least I know the author won't be disappointed, if you know what I mean.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah. I've never thought of it that way, because again, once the author writes that book, I'm very much a believer. I know, Rich, I'm going to speak for you for a second here too, because
of course,
of the kind of the death of the author. And there's this concept that as soon as the author writes the book, it's no longer just theirs.
Yeah.
It's everybody reads it, and it's now becomes a part of culture, becomes personal to you. You get something out of it that maybe the author didn't even intend, and you just see something different. And so, and you making that point about the author, hey, at least the author would be satisfied. Authors should write books that they'd want to read. And then hopefully it connects with other people. So I guess the more that happens, because I was YA dystopian, that was my thing. Those were kind of those were the viral books when I was growing up that I would just get into. And kind of, again, they all had a very similar formula that I loved.
But it's that familiarity, but they all were just like, 10% different from each other, and then took off in the rest of the series. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that, what do you both think there about anything that distinguishes just a viral book from a timeless book there? Because you're kind of getting at a point there about finishing and going a direction, and hey, at least if the author's satisfied. Is there something that timeless books have? Do they have to be more pretentious, or can there be a viral book that's also a timeless book? And I really want to make this distinction, because I think you could have 5-star books that are just fun and like, okay, no, it's not literary masterpiece. You could also have 5-star books that are literary masterpieces.
Social media does play such an important component. The internet is such a big role now, and so there is so much more noise these days too. The competition is crazy, where there, like, I know that, there have always been a lot of authors, a lot of books and all of that. And now with everyone having a platform, it's really hard to rise above. And so that is why these components of people wanting to shout it from the rooftops and then talk about it continually and post about it and engage with other people that's what makes it viral. And in order for it to become timeless, and I'm talking about timeless not in like the sense of where you read it for literature, where, like, for instance, like Beloved or one of those like literary classics, but I'm talking about like a timeless that defined, especially fantasy, that defined a generation. I also think that you have to have a good movie or TV series associated with it too.
I don't know many people who read Dune from the 1980s movie. I know a lot of people who picked up Dune because of the remake that 2020 created.
Yeah, so I do think
Definitely.
that there is a necessity that it has to be such a good movie or TV show that captivates a huge audience and then gets a lot of people excited to then read the books as well, and then catapults them into loving the books
But
too.
would you guys disagree?
I think there are definitely levels. I think movie adaptation or TV show adaptation, virality is, it takes it out of the book fans viral and makes it normie viral.
Yes.
Where now even your grandma knows about that story. But I think we're talking about timeless versus just viral. A viral book can sometimes be something where the mystery is the draw and the theory crafting, and you go, oh, what's going to happen? And it's all about I have to read the next book because what's going on? It's sparking you questions. But then once the conclusion's done, mystery over, if that's all you have, then I don't think that could be a timeless story.
So then
There
I
has to be
think that's
something
where
more.
it goes back into you want to stay in these worlds. And so even when it is done, you're like, but I need more.
Yes. It's kind of like where a book one can be very viral because it has a great mystery where people have to know what happens next. But once it's gone, once that happens, it dies away because there was nothing else other than or at least not enough other than the mystery.
And Nicole, what your point of going, hey, your joint point, Nicole, I'll give you like 60% credit. Okay. But the joint point of when you get a good movie and does that expands to a new base of people, does that continue the virality? Obviously the book needs to be popular enough to get a movie deal, but then it just catapults, it snowballs even more, where it kind of like right now there's the Olympics. I could care less about gymnastics and swimming any other time of the year, and now I'm like, let's go for Simone Biles. Let's go. Hell yeah. I'm like, suddenly I'm just like the biggest fan. And so it goes from like not on my radar whatsoever to, oh, now the Olympics is here. It's this grand event. It's now popularized and just makes it so much bigger than it would be on an off season. But that kind of point where the book marketing in a way where, hey, we're booktubers. I mean, we help promote books and we give that word of mouth. And Nicole, as you were mentioning earlier, when you went and looked up something and saw how many people were reviewing it, okay, it has this many people that are saying things, it's big enough. But the way I pick up a book is, hey, does Rich like it? Generally, like, hey, does somebody that I know and trust their book opinions, do they like the book? And then I'll go and read it. And so we kind of, I'm not saying we're the Olympics. I'm just saying we help sometimes.
Well, no, the people with influence, like, and I very humbly throw us in there as well. Like, there are people out there on the interwebs that if I see, like Lauren from Book Huddle is a great example. If I see Lauren from Book Huddle saying, hey, you need to read Quicksilver, I pick up Quicksilver very immediately because I know if she likes it, I'm very much going to like it as well. I would assume you all have many people in your community. You guys mentioned you have a Discord. Like, if you pick up a book, odds are people in that community might pick it up as well. Or if you talk about enjoying a book or something like that.
Right. If people pay $10 on our Patreon and suggest a book, we actually read all the books there. No, we don't. I'm sorry.
There's not enough time in the day.
I was going to say, that is quite the TBR you must have.
No.
We're getting about something that I'm now wondering what the number is on a personal connection. So in our own little niches, if one influential person to you, influential in the sense of, oh, you trust their opinion, recommends the book, you'll read it. And all it takes is one. What's the number of strangers that reviews has to be that equals that one close recommendation? Because I think that's maybe the viral aspect of it is now like there's no personal connection.
Great point. Yeah.
It's pure numbers. We would not have read ACOTAR because there's no personal connection got us to read that. There was no person in our lives who were like, you have to read ACOTAR. It was a pure numbers game.
Yeah.
Of what is the number?
I mean, that was fourth thing for me. Yeah, it was. I kept on seeing that gold cover everywhere, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to pick up this book. And then someone was like, it's How to Train Your Dragon meets, what's what's it called? Hogwarts. And I was like, sign me up. Lexi, like, I'm going to need to think about this for a second. What's your number?
I don't have a number to that, but it's more of a feeling. If I am embarrassed that I have not read this book yet, then there you go.
So you get guilt tripped into adding it to your TBR is what you're saying.
Essentially, but yeah. So
to add this into an idea about marketing is there's normally like a bell curve of adoption of a new thing, a new technology, new anything. There's like the early adopters, the semi-early, the late, the peak where the normies do it, and then eventually late adopters, all this stuff. I think the idea is everyone has a number, depending on who you are, in what community you are in. Because we're both in the book genre, I think our number is much lower than, say, your person doesn't read.
Oh, yeah,
I agree with you. Yes.
So that number is different for everyone. The idea of virality is that number has to be big enough to get the person who doesn't read enough, and that's a very high number.
Yes.
Maybe that, not exact number, but a feeling, that feeling that we're getting at, Lexi, the feeling you're getting at is possibly for us would be ACOTAR. We read ACOTAR, and the second that went beyond just romantasy and other people were talking about it, as soon as a book gets hated on, as soon as you start to see online not just people talking about it in a positive way, but when it starts getting hate, you already know it went beyond some filter to where, hey, if the book's written for certain people and it's written for this more niche, all the people that are early adopters, as you're saying, Rich, probably just love ACOTAR because they're early adopters. It was written for them. Then when you start to get higher on that curve to where it's getting to the more general audience, you start to see a lot more negative reviews because, it wasn't written for them in the first place, but it hit so well with those people that now you see it getting hated on. So maybe the number is when a book starts to get dogged on.
Well, and I love that idea. Especially, it goes back to what you were saying at the top of the episode, where like a viral book is like 80% people would love, and then it fluctuates, of course, depending on who the target audience is. And so I think that because then somebody will pick it up and they're like, I'm supposed to love this book, and then they read it and it's like there was like 20% in this that I actually liked, so I don't like it, and it's like, well, it wasn't for you.
I'll also throw in there like the negativity. It's like, those people who they don't like any mainstream pop artists or any mainstream artist because they're like, it's cool to hate on Taylor Swift or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's us.
Well, I was gonna say, like, when it gets viral, it would reach those people where it's like, it's really cool to hate on ACOTAR, like whatever, like where they feel a sense of superiority to say, I really hate this book. That's also when I think it gets to the negative side, unfortunately, of virality.
Yeah, one of my favorite movies. It goes Lord of the Rings, and number 2 behind that is Everything Everywhere All at Once. I love that film, and it had this thing where it was so niche. Rich and I saw it in theaters like day 2. Okay, we saw it. We were early adopters, and I put my blood and soul behind that film. I was the first, not the first person, but I was so early
the first ever person in the world.
You can attest that
no one saw it day 1.
Was the biggest fan ever. I saw it before the movie was done. I loved it. And I was an early adopter of, I said, this is perfection. This is cinema. And then more and more people saw it and recognized it had such high ratings. And people were going, oh my God, this is amazing. And then as soon as it gets close to Oscar season, it wins the Oscar for best film. And then I start to see just this trend of online. I'm seeing reviews are starting to go lower. People are hating on the film, which it's a very weird film. It's not, and the fact that it won an Oscar and now is out there for more of the masses to read, it kind of has that effect of now so many people can dislike the film because you weren't like Rich and me who went there and were day oneers. More so me, you liked the film. But yeah.
I really liked the film.
But is there something like that for you both where that's happened with a book? I hate that I'm using movie examples.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'll say, like, if a book is really hyped up to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm sitting down and I'm like, this is going to be the best fucking shit I've ever read in my entire life. And I'm like, this is good.
And that has happened a few times for us, and for us, we recognizing the platform that we do have, we are very mindful about not being negative toward books and whatnot, and if it is something that we did not like, we share the reason why we specifically did not like it, because we know that other people will like those things about it. And there have been a few books specifically in our book club that I've read them, and it's like, and some people absolutely love these books, and I'm just like, okay, like sure, it's a good book, and I kind of just move on with my life. And then when I see, it continuing to be super, super viral, I just kind of tune it out because it's like, okay, like I know that I'm not that audience apparently.
Well, and I think that's one of the things is like there's going to be those people who are like, and you guys were like this with Fourth Wing. I recognize that this is not for me, but I'm open to hearing about why people are so passionate about it. I think that is specifically when it goes to like the social media side of virality, you can scroll through comments on any meme about a viral book. When it gets to a certain level of virality, I'm talking like view count on social media, and you can scroll through the comments and there's going to be that one asshole who's like, this is the worst book I ever read and anyone who likes it sucks. And it's like, that's a very bold statement, sir. Like, why would you say that so black and white? There's going to be those very black and white haters who are very all or nothing. If I don't like it, no one should. And I think that's, again, it goes back to that negative side of virality where that is definitely one of the negative sides. And I honestly, my heart goes out to those authors who don't know how to tune that out, or like who were like thrust into this fame all of a sudden out of nowhere and are like, whoa, good Lord, sir. Like, I'm so sorry that I wrote this book and insulted your entire family and ancestry. Like, I think that it honestly makes me so sad to see that side of the virality when it was written because this person was like, oh, I really like this style. Let me see where this journey takes me. Alrighty, friends, to close out this discussion, since we are deciding what makes a viral book, if Powerpuff Girls has taught me anything, it is that 3 ingredients are made up into any certain thing. What are your 3 ingredients for a viral book? And each of us individually. What are your 3 ingredients?
All right. I will give it needs to have a underdog rootable protagonist, a world that you, the reader, want to be in. And lastly, it has to have a sense of mystery, some type of question that makes you want to read book 2. There has to be questions left unanswered.
All right.
I feel like that just answered all. Yeah, that's mine right there, too.
I have to write mine down before I forget them because they're dropping brilliance.
That about covers it. I would say, that and maybe throwing in just a little bit of following a formula. But what about you two? You agreed with basically Rich's answer?
No, exactly what Rich said. I might use like a few different words, but like just being like main character that you really do root for, that you feel emotionally connected to, and that you really are excited and on this journey right there alongside them. And of course, there's also just being immersed in these worlds and wanting to be in it, and it being, I'll say, even complex and magical. And again, of course, talking about fantasy here, that you just want to live in it and you find ways that you can connect into it. And I think that really does tie into, again, keeping the spirit of the book alive after you're finished with it and creating that snowball effect of everybody continuing to talk about it. And then number 3, the mystery of it. And for me, again, kind of thinking back to, viral nowadays, like theories, like I just speaking from our own experience, every single one of our videos that we talk about theories or episodes that are really theory heavy, those are always the most viewed and engaged because people are so excited, and it creates a sense of community too, and this sense of problem solving in new and different ways that we as adults, life can be really boring when you're just going in the day in and day out, and just being able to think in these new ways is really, really fun. So again, essentially what you said, but just in different words.
Who wants to think about taxes when you could think about dragons? That's what I want to say. Like,
yeah.
It's similar, but I'm going to like kind of throw some 10 degrees pivots on each of these. Immersion, yes, I definitely agree. I think that's basically all of us have that on ours, and I think that speaks volumes. I'm going to also say a book that, yes, the theories, but the book that also makes me want to immediately go back and reread it. I love a book that ends on a moment where I'm like, oh my God, this changes the book. A Court of Thorns and Roses is a great one. You read book 2 and book 1 is a different experience. It is not the same book. Fourth Wing, I think about very similar is that all of the Kindred's Curse series, all that kind of stuff. And then last but not least, I'm going to throw in, and this is more to your point earlier, Austin, about the timeless. This is what makes a timeless viral book. And that is, it has to give me an emotional range. And I mean that quite bluntly, exactly as it is. Like, I want to laugh. I want to feel things that I didn't know me as a Capricorn was capable of feeling in the depths of my soul.
And like I think about like Harry Potter, I go back to Harry Potter as my comfort read because I know that I'm going to feel the warm and fuzzy feelings of love when I read that book. And that emotional range that you get with these very viral books, I think tends to make me want to read it again and again to the point that it becomes a comfort book for me.
We didn't even really brush on that, but that's a great point to end it on as well. That I love when a book makes me both laugh and then cry, or just pushes me in different directions. But yeah, I won't keep rambling.
No, you're good. You're good. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us, 2ToRamble. Please tell our audience how they can find you and all that good stuff.
Sure. Hey, look for us on YouTube, 2ToRamble, the number 2, the ToRamble. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you want to listen to our stuff that way. If you want to talk about books with us, you can join our book club. It's through Patreon, exclusive little Discord. It's a fun community.
And if you don't like us, there's an episode where it was just me and my grandma. You can just watch that. And there was an episode.
So cute.
It was so cute. And there was an episode with him and his dad. So there's 2 episodes where it's not just us. And also we have guests on. So it's not always just us yapping.
Yeah. Sometimes it's 3ToRamble. Sometimes it's 4ToRamble.
Hey, actually, it was 4ToRamble.
4ToRamble here. Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. It was so great to have you on. And I'm sure we will all connect again very soon.